He's going to be talking to you as you go up that. But who has gone down it? You survived. Were you afraid? Yes, you were. That's the whole freaking point. It's not to be free from fear. It's to be free of fear. It does not have to hold you hostage. So, I want to take you on a quick little journey to help illustrate this a little bit more. We're going to use a scripture, probably the most known scripture there is, the 23rd Psalm, right? And I'm going to skip to verse 4. It's on your outline there for you. I'm going to skip to verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And who wrote this psalm, by the way? David did, right? David of David and Goliath fame. Right? Who started out his life as a shepherd boy, walking sheep around through the valley of the shadow of death. When this guy wrote this psalm, this wasn't just an illustration for him. This guy knew about fear. He knew what he was talking about. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Though I walk, that's action. Was he sitting around talking about it? No, he walked through. The other word is through. Where does through end? You go through the thing. Not afraid on the front side of it, but you go through it. Through the valley of the shadow of death. There's one word in here, and I think, 12 or 17 words, I counted before. In such a small little passage, there's a lot of life. There's a lot of lesson here for you to see. The shadow. Circle shadow on your paper. Circle shadow. What does a shadow mean? Shadow in your mind, what does it represent? Perceived fear. Potential danger. That's what this word is used in this passage. And how many of you notice when you've gone through a fear in your life that it was merely a shadow? This guy knew what he was talking about. Now, him going through this valley, leading his sheep, the dangers, just falling off a cliff at night, not to mention the wolves and the robbers. Danger and life, it was a lot more similar to this guy. He knew about fear. He's writing about fear. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Do you think he was afraid? Yes. He was afraid. But there was a difference. There was a difference. Now catch this. I know we've been going a little while. I know some of you didn't get a lot of sleep. I know you just had breakfast. But this could be worth the price of admission right here. It's a very subtle difference, and you're going to have to pay close attention to it. The question is, do you have fear, or does fear have you? Being brave is not an absence of fear. And that's where so many people make the mistake. I'll do this when I'm not afraid anymore. I'm afraid I'm not going to do it. And they see other people doing it. They see other people living their lives. And they think, these people, they're not afraid. They're doing it anyway. And sometimes those people aren't afraid. But a lot of times the reason why they're not afraid anymore is because they've gone through that fear. They've gone to the other side. They've gone through the valley. And they've seen that the shadow is merely a shadow. The question is, do you have fear, or does fear have you? It's a very, very subtle difference, but it can make all of the difference in the world. And what's great about coming to one of these retreats is you get to experience this. You're here. Some of you have come through this just to come here. This represented for you coming to the retreat. If this is your first time, remember back to the first. There are some people that aren't here. Why? Because they were afraid. Is it natural to be afraid to come into an environment like this?
Yes.
It is natural. It does happen. But let's look at some of those fears, okay? Looking through it through this guy's eyes. The number one fear that I see with you ladies in working with you and experiencing things with you, the number one fear that I see is the fear of rejection. And I see a lot of problems with rejection. Now notice where this fear comes from though. Okay, remember our fears come from that caveman part of our brain. What happens if this guy got rejected? What happens today on the Serengeti Plain if the zebra gets ostracized from the group? Guess what? That's big trouble. Why do we associate the fear of rejection? Why is it so strong in us? It's so strong in us because with this guy, if he got rejected, if he got ostracized and kicked out of the tribe, his life just got a whole lot harder. That's why rejection is so strong with us. Now let's take that to our fears that we have today. Some people don't come to this place because they have a fear of being rejected. But it's a different kind of fear than this guy. It comes from the same place, but it's different. And it is tough. A lot of you, the number one fear that people say that they have is the fear of public speaking. To come up here and to do this. Do you think that Pamela and I aren't afraid? We have fear too. And to come up here and stand up on this stage and to talk to you ladies, do I face rejection? I do face rejection. I face ridicule. Do you think we haven't received rejection and ridicule? We have. It's a legitimate fear. But this guy's fear of rejection was life and death. Our fear of rejection, not so much. I don't think anybody's going to come up here and eat it. This guy, that was a legitimate fear for him. So recognize where your fears come from and why your fears are so strong. You have a phone call you need to make. You have an appointment that you need to go on. There are some things that you need to do that you're not doing. Why? Because you're afraid, but they ain't going to eat you. If you get rejected, seriously, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it. If this is a problem for you, what is the worst that is going to happen? So some people think something bad about you. Big freaking deal. It isn't going to end your life like it ended this guy's life. Fear of failure. How many people have a fear of failure? Raise your hand if you have a fear of failure. I could come up here and do a complete flop. It could be a complete failure. You don't think that's a fear? You don't think as I've been preparing for this for weeks and weeks and weeks that that isn't a legitimate fear? Of course it is. What happened if this guy failed? Fear of failure was real for this guy. If he went out to kill something to eat it, and he failed, that thing might kill him. Or he might not be successful at it, and he may starve to death. That's a legitimate fear of failure. But to come in here, or to go to your word, or whatever it is that you are afraid of failing. A lot of you struggle with living your big life because you're afraid you're going to fail at it. And it's easier to set lower expectations. If I set a high expectation, then guess what? That's a shining light. That's something hard to live up to. So a lot of us set lower expectations. Why? Because it's less painful. Failure doesn't have to suck. That's a choice. Failure can be good. And there are some of you in this room that I have given you the challenge to go out and to fail better. Get better at failing. Get better and better and better at it. Your failure is not the same as this guy, but boy, does it ever feel like it. Does it feel like it? You want to know why it feels like it? Because that's where those feelings come from. But we're smarter than that. We're smarter than this guy. Okay, now we're going to replace the problem with the solution. The problem we identified was fear. The solution that we identified was brave. And here's a big thing. A lot of people, when they run into something that they struggle with, they try to stop doing it. Have you ever tried to stop doing a bad habit? It's kind of tough to stop doing a bad habit. We don't want you to stop doing things. We want you to start doing things. Live such a big life that the little life doesn't have room to grow. Do you have to plant weeds? You have to water them, fertilize them, tend to them. Weeds are going to happen anyway. But you want to know what a good way to keep weeds from growing? Have a nice, healthy yard full of grass. If your yard's healthy and it's growing green grass, it's hard for those weeds to grow. When your yard's not very healthy, those weeds pop up all of the time. We don't want you so much to think about and put your focus on stop living the little life. We want you to think about going out and actively living your big life. The more that you live your big life, the less room for growth. Stop focusing on defense and start focusing on offense. I can't tell you how many ladies in here, how many I've talked with that aren't in here, come to me with a problem. My husband, my son, my daughter, myself, whoever it is. They're having this problem. How do I help them? Stop focusing on the problem. Stop living your life on defense. And instead live your life on offense. And that's what I'm trying to teach you how to do here. Replace the problem with the solution. It's not trying to get rid of fear. It's replacing the fear. Replacing the fear with something else. We can respond, not just react. Unlike an animal, we don't have to just respond to react to our instincts. We can respond to them. And that's what I'm asking you to do. And here's how you do it. It's based in how we see. How we see. Perception is reality. How you view your life is real to you. And how we view our life is based upon, part of it is just our makeup, our DNA, it's in our genetics. Part of it is our life's experiences. I refer to this time when you have this realization as the Ferris Bueller moment. Who in here has watched Ferris Bueller before? Pretty much everybody's seen Ferris Bueller, right? I watched Ferris Bueller as a teenage boy. That's a pretty cool movie. Right? That's pretty neat. This guy skipping school, out driving Ferraris, picking up his girlfriend, having a good time. And then about a year or so ago, I watched this movie with my teenagers. And I'm like, wait a second. This isn't so cool. What the heck is going on here? This guy's ditching school. And I look over at my kids, they're like, yeah, this is cool. What changed? I viewed it differently as a 40-year-old man than I did as a 14-year-old boy. Who was right and who was wrong? Somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong, right? Isn't that the way that it works? My son views his life differently than I do. I suppose he's a boy. He's 16 years old. I have to remind myself this all the time. You ought to try living in this brain sometimes. Trust me, it's difficult.
I get it.
What changed was how I saw it. I've used this illustration before with you. Everybody knows what this is, right? What these are? 3D glasses, right? Remember when you went to your first 3D movie? And I'm not talking about the old with the red and the blue lens kind of one, but these new ones. Remember when you went to that first new one? I remember for us it was Monsters, Inc. And when you went and saw that 3D movie, it's amazing, right? Now we've become used to it. But that first time, wow, it was really amazing to see these things come off the screen. Has anybody ever taken their glasses off when it's on? How does it look? It's weird, right? It doesn't look good. It looks strange. It's confusing. When you put the glasses on, and wow, what changed? Did the movie change? The movie didn't change at all. How you see. And here's the thing. We can all affect how we see. I introduced this guy to you, right? And this guy is really, really good at his way of looking at things. But there's another way that we can look. He sees life his way. And by the way, if you're running into this kind of fear, if you're out there and you find this kind of fear, right? This guy is your best friend. Because you want to do the thing that he does on the TV. You want to run, right? But not all fear is like that. Like we said, coming in here, coming into these types of environments. So there's another way. He sees life one way. But there's another way that we can see it too. And we can see life this way. Everybody see who this is? This is Yoda. These two people see things differently than one another. You have to recognize it's the same thing for you. When a fear comes your way, who's afraid of that zip line? Who's afraid of coming here? Who's afraid of going out and making a phone call? There's something in your life that you're afraid of doing. Sometimes it's afraid of work. Hey, let's face it, we can get by on 50-60% effort today and have an okay life. It's the reality of the world that we live in today. What happened if this guy gave 50-60% effort? He's dead. We can choose how we view our life. So I want to go through this little exercise with you of the way that we can look at fear. Okay? Here are the two different ways, the two different scenarios of how we can look at fear. The first side is the fear reaction side of the equation. Now this is non-life threatening. Again, if it's life threatening, if it's something like this, if it's this kind of fear, feel free to follow the caveman. Okay? But if it's non-life threatening, going to a retreat, going to work, making a phone call, talking to someone that you're afraid of talking to, non-life threatening, if you go down this path, you're going to struggle. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to start to have doubts, right? What ifs? What if this happens? If you go down this path of fear, you're going to begin to have doubts. And that's going to lead, that's what these arrows represent. It's going to lead to worry. Worry is active. It's not passive. And I know in this room, we've got some professional worriers. There's some of you that's in this room right now that's so good at worrying, you're worried about what I'm going to talk about with worry. You're worried where that path is going to lead you. Worry is wasted energy. I want you to think about, especially those of you that are really good at worrying, I want you to think about something recently that you've worried about. Now, I'm serious. I want you to get there. I want you to go there. It's probably not going to be too tough. I want you to think about that thing. You feel it? You feel that inside? You feel that energy? That sense of dread, that sense of threat, and how it can build, and how it can grow? Does that feel active or passive? You feel that energy? And then we wonder why we're worn out. Some of the most worn out, tired people I know sit around and do nothing. Because they're spending that energy. Hey, that's a lot of energy. And that's a lot of negative energy that gets built up inside. Is that doing anything about your problem? Is that fixing the problem at all? This is the path. If you go down this path, this is where this path is going to take you. And I'm trying to show you this so that you can see it, so that we can replace the problem with the solution. After you're worrying, then what happens? You start to look at outs. You start to look for outs. Again, this can be an active thing. Boy, we got some outs too, right? We got some kind of ready in our pocket. We can pull that out, like a hall pass to life. Here you go. Don't expect me to go down that path. I got this. We've got those excuses covered, and we can whip them suckers out real quick. And when you start to doubt and then worry, and if you keep going down that path, you're going to start to look for outs in your life. And guess what happens when you choose the outs in your life? That's your reward. Okay, so you're finished. You don't have to go down there. You don't have to do that. then that's your reward. And when we settle, how does that feel? How does that feel when you settle? Now here's a key, ladies. Listen to me. Here's a key. We all pay a price. We all pay a price. There's no getting out of paying the price. You can pay the price up front and go through your fears, or you can pay the price later and go to the land of regret. And I know what happens when you get to regret. Regret can be a powerful thing. I know that regret is what took the life of my father. He saw his 52 years, what he had done, the bridges he had burnt, and decided it wasn't worth it anymore. You don't think regret's a powerful thing? Regret is a powerful thing. Do not go down this path, because when you start to have the doubts and the worry and you're looking for the outs and you take those outs, then that leads to weakness. You're less capable than you were. You atrophy. If you work a muscle and you work it and you work it, it will get stronger. What happens if you stop working it? It will atrophy. It will get weaker. And if you go down this path in your life, you're going to get weaker. I'm sorry, I didn't do this. This isn't me. This is the reality. And I want to help you look at it and face the reality and to work through the fears of it and not hide from it. I want you to conquer and not cower. You have the choice. It's up to you what you do with it. Your fear isn't going to go away. It's not going to just go poof, and you're going to go home and life's going to come knocking on the door. You've got to go out and do it. Don't go down this path. Because what happens? What's the end result of all of these things? Insecurity. You don't have the experiences that you were supposed to experience. Why? Because you didn't fight through the fear. You don't have the experiences. You don't have the capabilities. But guess what? It's inside of you. You can do it. You are capable. But because you didn't go down that path, because you gave into these things, and insecurity is tough. It can be tough. And I know, having dealt with so many of you ladies in the past, that this is where you really feel like life is not a lot of fun when you get to that insecure place. And here's a big danger. This is a danger zone. And I want you to circle it.